All right, good afternoon, everyone. We would like to welcome you to our Fall 2020 Higher and Post-Secondary Education Applied Project poster session. Thank you all for being here. First, we'd like to, of course, welcome our presenters and our graduate students who will be sharing with you all shortly about some of the work that they've done over the last 15 weeks, although in many cases for many of our students, this represents a longer engagement with the topic, whether it's through their own professional careers or through practicum experiences. But what this culminating project will give you an opportunity to do is to learn a little bit more about the things that they've been able to research and gather data on and share findings related to critical and timely issues within higher and post-secondary education context. I should have started by saying my name is Kia McGuire. I'm an associate professor in the higher and post-secondary education program. My gender pronouns are he, him, and his. Um, and I would also like to acknowledge the ancestral homelands of the Acme, Atham, and Peepash peoples' lands, which we all are working from and learning on. And so I would like to start by simply sharing a little bit about the program and more importantly, where this project fits within that within students' learning experiences. And then I'll turn it over to my colleague, Dr. McIntyre, who will share a little bit more about the floor of the events for today. Again, our higher and post-secondary education program is an opportunity and a learning experience that's really geared to prepare professionals to work in a variety of contexts on college and university campuses. One of the things that has become a core identity of our program has been the process by which we help and work alongside students as they learn ways to gather data, analyze data, all in the service of improving higher education practice and policy wherever they may be located. And so this applied inquiry or applied project, that poster session that you see here today is a culmination of a 15-week exercise or experience. During the first 7.5 weeks, our students have an opportunity to design a project. Of course, these projects are oftentimes very ambitious, and over our 15 weeks, we are able to pare it down into something that is not only manageable, but that will be impactful with the data that they're able to gather. And then in this session B of the semester, students are able to carry out their research project. And we'll get a little bit towards this at the end of the session today when we give some thank yous, but you should know this represents not only the work of our students and the faculty who are in the classroom, but also a number of mentors who sign up to work with students along and help give feedback on their projects as they're being designed and carried out. So we look forward to you all engaging with our students today, asking them questions, learning about their research, and hopefully having a very invigorating conversation. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. McIntyre, who will say a little bit more about how the rest of the afternoon will be spent.
Thank you. Hi there. My name is Lisa McIntyre. I am an executive director in the University Provost Office at ASU and teach in the Master in Higher Ed program. The applied project is one of my favorite classes because, as Dr. McGuire said, this is about the topics that the students are most interested in. And so I always learn a lot about topics that I maybe don't get exposure to on a regular basis. So I hope all our guests have that same experience. Our students will be presenting in small breakout rooms of 3 to 4 folks. Dr. McGuire is going to put a link in the chat where you can find the Zoom breakout room link for the individual that you're here to support or the breakout room that you're most interested in. They are grouped by topics. We ask that you mute your microphones. You're all doing a great job of that if you're not the one presenting. We will present in order of the link that Dr. McGuire just shared. There will be a facilitator in the room to just kind of make sure all the technical pieces go right. They will be recorded sessions. We also ask that you hold all your questions until all of the presentations in your breakout room are complete, and then we'll open up that session for questions. We do encourage you to ask questions. These folks are experts on this topic and have spent a lot of time and energy becoming experts. And so this is a great opportunity for them to answer any questions that you might have. Once all the presentations in your breakout room are complete, we ask you to come back to this main session room for us to wrap up the program. So with that, Dr. McGuire, anything I missed or you want to add before we break out?
Nope, that's it. And please reach out to us for any questions that you might have. Dr. McIntyre and I will be moving from room to room. I see that I just got a message in the chat asking, can individuals move from room to room? Yes, as long as you're not a presenter. So all of our guests beyond the students are able to again move as you would like to bounce around to hear different topics of conversation and discussion. And so again, at this time, we'll give folks about 5 to 7 minutes to make your way over to your rooms. For our students who are on the call, again, look at the sheet as well so that you can go to the room that you will be in. And yeah, I think that's it for now. So thank you and welcome all again.
All right. You guys able to see the presentation okay?
Yep.
Perfect. Cool. So welcome, everyone. My name is Joseph Scarpa. I am, of course, in the graduate program for higher and post-secondary education. And this past semester, my research project was an examination on the role of the cultural student organizations in supporting Latinx, Hispanic, and Chicanx students here at ASU. So my research problem was looking to understand and see how students from underrepresented backgrounds, specifically Hispanic, Latinx, and Chicanx students, face a variety of barriers in higher education. And so what do some of those barriers look like? In reading the different literature and seeing what students have to say, these barriers can look like a lot of different things. We all have different backgrounds, we all come from different backgrounds, and so some of the more common barriers that came up in the literature were being a first generation student, in turn, not having that college going culture. So not really sure, what to do, how to go to college, how to access college, what those resources are. Coming from a low income family, speaking English as a second language, family restraints, and a lack of overall guidance. And so all of these things play a role in barriers that present themselves to these students from a historically marginalized group. And when I first came to ASU, we all hear about the ASU charter and its importance. And so part of the charter says measured not by whom it excludes, but by whom it includes and how they succeed. And so the research problem, is looking at how are these students succeeding? And so for me and in my research, the purpose of this study was to examine and describe the student perceptions of cultural student organizations. Specifically, I wanted to look at the role of El Concilio, which is one of 7 student coalitions at Arizona State University, as well as its member organizations. To give you an idea what El Concilio is, like I said, it's one of the 7 parent organizations, and El Concilio is a parent org to over 30 different organizations. All of these are registered student organizations at ASU and report up to ASASU, the Associated Students of Arizona State University. Part of their website states that we seek to fill the needs of our emerging leaders and hope to offer the social, cultural, academic, and political service events and programs to fully represent and have a bigger impact on all campuses. And so that's El Concilio's goal, and I wanted to take that and see if they're doing that. So part of it is also understanding that long-term success. And for me, I broke up success into different constructs, which I'll talk about in just a second. But my 2 main research questions here were, what role, if any, does El Concilio or its member organizations play in supporting these students at ASU? And what is the relationship of these organizations in creating a sense of community for these students as well? So my methodology was a quantitative descriptive research study, and it was conducted through an anonymous and voluntary study survey through Qualtrics. The survey, like I said, was anonymous. There was no identifiable information collected, and it was shared through email. And so initially I reached out and planned to meet with the organization, but unfortunately because of scheduling and COVID, we weren't able to actually meet, but I was able to get a list of emails from the staff advisor. And I also reached out to the previous staff advisor, as well as the president of the Chicano Latino Faculty Staff Association at ASU as well. So I was able to send out a bunch of emails to a bunch of the organizations, as well as their student leaders, who then were able to forward it to their students and members in their various organizations. Now, in terms of the data analysis, what I collected, it was completed through Qualtrics and Excel. And so I created the data based on the measures of central tendency, typical mean, median, mode, and standard deviation. Also did a bunch of cross tabulations, which you'll see in a second, because I broke it down into 3 constructs. The whole point of El Concilio, like they mentioned in their website, was supporting students through social, cultural, academic, and political events. So I wanted to see if they're doing just that. Now, after sending out my survey, I was lucky to get 56 participants. Of those 56 participants, 41 actually completed and submitted the survey. One person was a faculty member and one person was not affiliated with ASU, so their responses were disregarded. So in total, I had 39 responses that were able to be further analyzed. Of those students, 4 of them were members of just El Concilio, 2 of them were members of El Concilio and a member organization. 15 of them were members of a member organization and 18 were not members. A part of my survey was also if they were involved or not, and if they weren't involved in these organizations, I still wanted to get some information about their experience at ASU as well. In terms of the gender identity, as you can see, it was a majority female, 34-5, and I did want to get out to as many campuses as possible. These organizations serve students across all 4 campuses, so I wanted to get some information from each of them. I was lucky to get 29 students, the majority as expected from the Tempe campus, being it's the largest campus at ASU, 8 from downtown Phoenix, and 2 from the West campus. Unfortunately, I didn't get any students from the Polytechnic campus, though. Looking at the academic level of the students, because these organizations serve students across the campus and throughout their time at ASU, I wanted to see what level they were at in terms of their academics. So you'll see here that a majority of the students were in their senior year. The rest of the majority were in their junior year. I was actually able to get 1 law student and 1 graduate student. So I have a nice mixture of undergraduate and graduate students as well. Being that my survey and my research is geared towards Hispanic, Latinx, and Chicanx students, wasn't surprised to find that majority of the students who completed the survey do identify in that way as well. But again, I do have a nice mix of various race and ethnicities throughout the survey. So like I talked about, I broke up my findings into these 3 different constructs. I combined social events and cultural events into one as sociocultural awareness, also looked at civic engagement and academic engagement. So looking at academic engagement, academic achievement, some of these questions were, did the organization enhance your ability to think critically? Did it help you define problems? Did it help you solve problems? Has it positively impacted your academic performance? Some few different questions to get an idea of how their academic achievement is looking like. Now, it was on a scale of 1 to 5. This was a Likert scale, 1 being strongly disagree, 6 being strongly agree. So you can see that across the board, most students agreed with these statements, and towards the civic engagement, sociocultural awareness, a little bit higher with averages of 5.2 and 5.17. I was also pretty happy to see that really across the board, the mode was 6, the median was closer to 6. And so, it looks like that most students will agree that these organizations are supporting them in these various constructs. I did want to point out one thing, the standard deviation of the civic engagement. I noticed that the standard deviation was kind of a little bit all over the place with a few of the different constructs. I did see that one of the students who completed the survey was only involved for 1 semester. And so for that student, they rated everything a little bit lower than the average. That being, they've only been involved for 1 semester, haven't had that real impact of the organizations just yet. The second part of my research study was looking at the findings based on the events that they're going to. And so El Concilio made it a point to talk about social events, cultural events, civic events, and academic events. So I wanted to know if they're doing enough to support these students through those different events. Again, you'll see here that a lot of the students are doing, strongly leaning towards strongly agree. So looking at academic achievement, we'll see that the averages are 5.4, 5.3, 5.3, and 5.5. And so, of course, academic achievement being the highest here. When it's an event geared towards a specific topic, then it was expected that that event would be a little bit higher. Again, the standard deviation was pretty low across the board, meaning most students agree with this, agree with the various topics. And then looking at sociocultural awareness, 5.5 across the board with the 5.6, and with civic engagement, 5.7 and 5.6 across the board. So all of these students are mostly strongly agreeing with the statements based on these different constructs. And I was really happy to see that. Not so much surprised because I know the work that El Concilio does, and I've been part of student government and clubs and organizations. But I was happy to see that this kind of confirmed that they're really working well with these students. Now, I also wanted to know, based on the number of semesters they were involved. And so this looks kind of crazy, but again, it's based on academic achievement and the number of semesters they've been involved. The key findings and key takeaway from this graph is that you'll see that during their first 4 semesters, the numbers tend to be a little bit lower, closer towards agree and slightly agree. Same can be said for sociocultural and civic engagement with this kind of one outlier here. But as you get upwards to your 5th semester, 6th semester, 7th semester, those numbers all skyrocketed. If they've been involved for closer to 2-3 years, they've made friends, they've connected with the group, they know what's going on in the organization, and they've all strongly agree here. Now you'll also notice their last semester, it kind of drops down again. But for seniors and for those of us that work with students, we know that when we're in our last semester of undergraduate, there's so many things going on. If you're applying for graduate schools, medical schools, whatever it is you're doing, getting ready for the workforce, or just not thinking about clubs and organizations, you want to focus on school. That's where I expected to see a little drop, and I did, 5.4, 5.4, 5.5. Now, looking at the non-members, when I was originally sending out the survey, I was a little worried I wasn't going to get as many responses because I wasn't able to meet with the organizations in person or over Zoom. So I also included a piece about non-members. And so these questions were the same questions asked by the members of the organizations. And so for these 3 constructs, you'll see that for students that are not a part of cultural organizations, they have an 88% yes and an 89% yes for civic and academic achievement, meaning that they mostly agree with these statements. And so, it was really nice to see that even for students that aren't involved in these organizations, they are still getting some kind of support across campus as well. And one thing I like to point out, and kind of the key takeaway here, is that for sociocultural awareness, the percent dropped pretty significantly to 75%, which makes sense because for students that aren't involved in a cultural organization, they're not going to get much more sociocultural awareness, education, or knowledge in that sense. I also asked a short follow-up question just for these students. Not all of them answered it, but the majority answers were, I was involved in a club, I was involved in an organization, I had a leadership role. All these different things play a role in a student's success over the course of their career at ASU. So I was really happy to see that these students are still getting that kind of experience. Now, the last piece is that sense of community. This was that second research question. And I wanted to understand and see, as a student at ASU, do you feel like you are part of the community? And so this was part of some of the questions I posed were, is this organization creating a sense of trust among its members? Is it having an influence on other communities? Is it making a positive impact for you at ASU? Is it making a positive impact beyond ASU? And again, looking at these students, if you've only been involved for a year or two, that tends to be a little bit low, more towards the agree. But after 3-4 years of being involved, all of these averages went pretty high, and they were all strongly agreeing that these organizations are creating a sense of community. And again, by event type, you'll see that they are all pretty high, 5.4, 5.4, with pretty decent medians as well. So it was just nice to see that overall students do in fact strongly agree that these organizations are creating a strong sense of community. Now, overall, in terms of the implications and some conclusions, for student affairs professionals, I think the more involved that our students are, the more engaged that they are, of course, the better outcome of success they're going to have. And now for students of Hispanic, Latinx, and Chicanx background, we know that there are additional barriers for these students, whatever that may be. And so being able to connect with these students, get them engaged, whether it be through a course, whether it be through cultural organizations, promoting engagement in student organizations, all these things play a role in supporting student success of historically marginalized students. Now, of course, there are limitations to the study. It was done just at the ASU campus. It was majority female, and it was just a simple survey, nothing too crazy. So moving forward with any kind of future research, I would love to also include, a piece of qualitative data. I would love to make it a longitudinal study, really looking at the course of their 4 years or 5 years or 6 years at an institution, and really get a chance to interview them and learn more about their experience as well. And then, of course, that long-term outcome. I would love to see how these organizations support them in the long term, even after they graduate from ASU. And so that was my research project. And if you do have any questions or you want to talk more about it, always happy to. That's my email contact information. And thanks so much for listening.
Thank you so much. So thank you for that, Jordan. So I have to say, this is my first time participating in a virtual poster session, and that felt like a whirlwind, but in a good way. So thank you all for your presentations. Both Dr. McIntyre and I had an opportunity to hop around from room to room. I'm actually going to stop talking and turn over to Dr. McIntyre, and I'll say a little bit more to close us out at the end.
All right. I just wanted to congratulate all of you. You should be very proud of what you did. I know this semester was like none other. Just like Dr. McGuire, that was my first virtual poster session. And I just want to commend you all on your resilience and determination in making it work. We had all kinds of fun challenges to work through, and we all did it and had great communication. And I think you all, just the potential is limitless for all of you. So I wish you all the best of luck. I hope to hear updates from you all where your careers take you, and um, always here as a resource for you all. So I see all the applause and celebrations going up. It might be a bit much to unmute and do a round of applause, but want to thank all the guests, family members who were able to join us today. That is one of the great things about our virtual opportunity, is that I think we might have been able to expand our audience a bit more. We will be sharing recordings with the students. So if you weren't able to have a guest join us today, please share it with them. There's no way any of us would have made it through this program without all the support of our family and friends. And I also want to thank our colleagues. So every student in this part of the project has access to a professional mentor who's met with them multiple times throughout the semester and giving them feedback and encouragement. And so thank you all for doing that for our students. It really was great to see the feedback and insights, and having that other perspective to bounce ideas around was really helpful and benefited the work. So all right, well, I'll stop gushing. Dr. McGuire, what did you have?
Yeah, so just one more thank you before we move on, which is to Jody and her team who have handled all the logistical responsibilities for today, is setting up the virtual rooms, making sure that all the Zoom links work, and making sure that we have facilitators in each room. So thank you to Jody, Ashley, Pinnock, Liam, Caitlin, for your support and making sure that this program went off without any hiccups. So thank you all very much for making this easy for Dr. McIntyre and myself. I also would just like to echo Dr. McIntyre and thank our mentors. Usually we have like mentors and program instructors like raise their hand. I think there's a reaction to do that. So if you know how to raise your hand or put a thumbs up, maybe if you want to put a thumbs up, how about that? So that we can acknowledge all of our mentors and program faculty who teach and work alongside our students throughout the program. Your support is sincerely and deeply appreciated. As you all know, I think one of the biggest strengths of our program is that we have meaningful and long-lasting relationships with individuals who are educators and scholars working both at ASU, but also across the Valley, and sometimes as well as in other states. And so we appreciate the support that you provide, and the mentorship, and the learning that you, or the way that you help to expand the learning of our students in our program. So thank you very much for that. And most importantly, I want to say congratulations and thank you to our students. I'm sure it cannot go overstated, I think, how unique this semester has been. And you all continue to approach the project and your capstone experience with enthusiasm, with a level of dedication, a level of flexibility and creativity that I think I was just excited to see, and gave me also energy as I entered and worked with you all over the last 7.5 weeks. And so I know very few things feel like it's normal as far as celebrating things in this particular context, but we do hope that you will find time to honor this moment in some way, to reflect back on all of the hard work that you've accomplished over your time in the program, and that you are able to enjoy at least a moment of reprieve with family and friends and colleagues, because what you have accomplished not only today and throughout the semester, but over the program is definitely worth celebrating. And it has been our pleasure to be on this journey alongside of you. So there's just two more things before we wrap up. So first one is kind of an announcement of sorts, which is at the very end, we'll ask all mentors, program faculty, and students to stay on the call so that we can take a photo. We may have to take multiple photos. I actually don't know how this works, taking photos in Zoom, but Jody will be here to assist us with that. And also every semester during the capstone experience, we have an opportunity to recognize a student, one of your colleagues and peers, who is nominated by program faculty as a recognition for their achievement and contributions, both inside and outside of the classroom, to the higher and post-secondary education program. And so this year we'll have an opportunity to do the same. And what I'm going to do is just share very briefly what one nominator said about this particular student before I announce who the student is. And again, we and Lindsay, Dr. Dipple, who is on the call, normally does this part and does it much more eloquently than I do as I fumble through this process. But it's really an opportunity for us to recognize a peer who has made significant contributions, who has also impressed upon faculty with their dedication, not simply in this course, but throughout the program, and is therefore worthy of the nomination. We usually will hand you a piece of paper or a certificate of an award framed. We will have to connect after this in order to pass that along to you. But one nominator said about this student, that this student is extremely engaged. They also demonstrate a high level of intellectual curiosity, and they also not only work well with students, but embrace collaboration, and that this student in particular deserves recognition for their outstanding contributions that they made to the learning environment within and across classrooms. And so without further ado, that student is Dakota Weber. So let's give Dakota a round of applause. And also, Dakota, congratulations. I know you didn't know this was happening. You and I can connect after to make sure that you get your certificate and award. But again, congratulations, and for an award that's well deserved. Okay. Yes, you're welcome. You're welcome. All right. So we're going to stop there. Again, thank you for everyone who came and visited with us. We'll ask for the students and program faculty and mentors to stay on so that we can get one picture, and we will share that out with everyone as well.